tracks, stats, and facts. www.enterthedome.com.
Good people, what's going on? Happy Good Friday. Yes, episode 11, the Dome Podcast. Thank you for viewing the first 10 episodes, man. We're just getting started. I appreciate the comments in the comment section, the new subscribers. I haven't used this YouTube channel in several years, man. So we just started the podcast a few weeks ago and grabbed a few, probably 120 new subscribers so far overall. So it's new. We're growing. And I thank you guys sincerely. Please follow me on Tony the Dome on Twitter, enterthedome.com, where you can see articles and things of that nature. I have a few lists up there that we did a few episodes with, as well as the greatest albums, greatest MCs, and stuff like that, just to get that out the way, because that's definitely not my focus. We want to touch on a lot of different things on the Dome Podcast. You can see the rundown here on this YouTube channel and also on my Twitter page. Now, again, episode 11, we're going to talk about death in hip-hop, how death is used in so much of the language, how it's looked at overall, because words have power. But music is one of the biggest expressions of society. It has been like that since, music was dated in history. It is influential. It is entertaining. It can be real. We said this before on earlier episodes that art imitates life. Some people feel like words have so much power that you can speak actual actions into existence. A lot of people believe that. A lot of people believe that people that speak positivity all the time tend to have some type of positive outlook on life. Some people believe that people who have a more grim view of life, some of them might think it's reality, because life and death and everything in between is reality. But some people feel like a certain vibe, a certain energy will bring upon certain actions in your life or in your circle, or in your family, in your community. Like it's the energy you give off. Some will say energy is real. Words create energy for some people. In hip hop, death is spoken very often. We know that hip hop, like we said before, is a result of American history. It's a result of situations that caused the black community to be in such a state of disarray. Now, again, when I say the black community, there's more than one. The black community is just not a poverty-stricken community. Every race in America, every culture within America have upper class, middle class, lower class. But for the sake of conversation, we're talking about the lower class, inner city, or just the poverty-stricken areas in America that hip-hop has had a huge influence on. It's where it's from the streets. You know what I mean? It's what's going on from Marvin Gaye put into a hip-hop form, The Message by Grandmaster Flash and Melly Mel. So you see the poverty, the death, the drugs, the struggle, and it's put into the music. So today we're talking about the death that's in the music. And we think of certain artists that spoke on death a lot. And I think that one thing to be said is, if we think of probably the top 5 or 6 artists that spoke the most or speak the most about death, and then look at their life or the life they had because they're gone now, is that real? Do you bring that energy into your life by the words you speak? They say freedom of speech is not free. Freedom of speech is expensive, depending on what you say. You think that you have this freedom, but it's really not the case. In all aspects of life, not just music, but in terms of music, when you say things, you have to go out there and live those words. Some MCs rap very positive. So I think they can go anywhere. Like if I think of Mos Def, for example, when he's doing songs like Umi Say and stuff like that, his vibe is different. So the energy that's going to follow him in his daily walks is going to be different. Common's career. Think of the songs that he's had. Hip Hop, The Love of My Life, Songs for Asada, just positive songs for the most part. The People. Even The Corner, when he's talking about, the life of inner city. He can still walk around with a certain energy that revolves around him because what he's put into the universe and what we put into the universe sometimes comes back on us, man. I mean, you probably said something before, like, I shouldn't have said that. And after you said it, something might have happened in your life. It manifested from your words. So I always use the first example. Of course, we'll talk about Tupac first. We'll talk about someone who saw a lot of pain growing up. He saw his mother on drugs. He saw people that his mother was close to go through the struggle as a kid. Some of them was from the civil rights era, and some of their lives didn't end up the way, a lot of people in the civil rights era, it didn't turn out to be what you wanted to be. It was some American dream for some of the people that he cared about, including his mom at some point until he got rich. She went through a lot. She was on drugs. Even though he was a crack fiend mama, he was always a black queen mama. You know what I'm saying? So he saw a lot of pain. It's a lot of levels to Tupac music. But think about this. He always talked about a lot of reality rap. He was more conscious probably on Tupacalypse Now. Brenda's Got a Baby, the little girl that got killed. He felt so inclined to do a song about. You know what I'm saying? So he had songs like Brenda's Got a Baby. He had what my homies called, stuff like that. The Goes to Strictly for My Niggas. He had certain songs that he talked about pain and the community and stuff like that. But after, he was shot, he was more paranoid. He probably thought he was going to die. So, around 95, Me Against the World come out, Tupac is more paranoid. So you hear that on If I Die Tonight. I mean, this guy's 23, 24 years old writing this song. He's already talking about If I Die Tonight. Death Around the Corner. On the show soundtrack, he had My Block, talking about what happened on his block, people getting killed. So Tupac rapped a lot about death. A lot of his friends and people who knew him, when they do interviews now, they talk about, man, Tupac always did a lot of songs because he didn't feel like he had a lot of time. But why not? Something inside of him made him feel like he didn't have a lot of time. I don't know. They always talked about him doing 5-6 songs in one night. Like, yo, man, y'all got to hurry up. Y'all got to record this, man. We ain't got all day. You know what I'm saying? He was like in a rush or something. Maybe some inside of him felt like, man, I almost got killed at Quiet Studio. I know that I'm vulnerable. I understand that maybe that's the purpose of him doing Death Around the Corner. It's around the corner for all of us. But that corner could be 2 days from now or 40 or 50 years from now, depending on someone's age and health and etc. So maybe he looked at Death Around the Corner, meaning since I almost got killed, man, maybe it's closer to me now than ever. You know what I'm saying? So it resonated in his songs. Then he would go on future albums like All Eyes on Me, Life Goes On. Now that was kind of more of, it wasn't necessarily like murder, but it was about death though, and life going on. I ain't mad at you. You record a video with you dead, it shows you getting killed, it shows you going to heaven, and you're there with some of the other greats, for example, like Red Fox and people like that. It showed that. So Tupac had somewhat of a fascination with death. I don't know if fascination is the word, but it was a reality to him, and he expressed it like that. He talked about that in every other song, and even though he was a diverse artist, talking about, women, partying, the street life, the consciousness of the black community, American history, Tupac touched on everything, but death was one of his focus points in his music. And he ended up dead by 25. Is that energy real? That's for you guys to, to ponder on. I do feel like sometimes we can't speak certain things, man, and the energy might not be right. Whatever happens after that, it is what it is. And at the same time, we'll go and get these first two people out the way. Of course, Biggie. His album was called Ready to Die. His first album, his debut album. His follow-up album is Life After Death. Okay? The title track is Ready to Die. He has a song on there, Suicidal Thoughts. So the album starts with him being born, it ends with him killing himself. You know what I'm saying? And throughout the album, outside of the puffy singles, it was a hard, dark album. Robbery joints, give me the loot. You know what I'm saying? Everyday struggle. So it was something throughout the album that was grim when you really think about it. And then Life After Death comes out. The picture is him in front of a hearse. This energy, man, y'all. You know what? He's in front of a hearse. You know what I'm saying? The song on there, you know about it till somebody kill you. It's grim. The album cover is grim. Niggas bleed. 10 Crack Commandments. There are a lot of songs on there, that definitely, I don't want to say glorifying death, but there definitely some songs on there that has some violence in it. And he was still following that thing from Ready to Die, in my opinion. Right into Life After Death. During that time, he did record a song called, Dead Wrong. So, and I know that wasn't necessarily about death, but I'm just saying that word was spilled out of Biggie's mouth pretty often on his first two albums. He died at 24. Big L. He had songs that was about death. A lot of violent songs, horrorcore type of rap. He spoke on death pretty often in his lyrics. Whether it was some of his stories that he might have told or just rhyming. He rhymed about murdering people a lot. Yes, L was very lyrical, very skilled. I showed a picture of Lifestyles of the Poor and Dangerous on my Twitter. I had it on day one in 1995. So I am a Big L fan, okay? Contrary to the popular belief by some people in regard to my Twitter page, I like Big L a lot. But for me, his life was summed up on his own song, Street Struck. You better listen to L rhyme, because being street struck will get you nothing but a bullet of jail time. And listen to the lyrics on Street Struck. It almost sounds like his own life on Street Struck. He spoke it a lot. He didn't make it to 30. Now, are these three situations coincidence? Because of almost the obsession with the word death, and does that death angel follow you when you start calling him? I don't know. I'm just posing these thoughts and these questions, my people. I can't call it. But man, that's three for three. Because they didn't die of illness. They died of violence. Eazy-E died of an illness. Heavy D, illness. Even though Heavy D was very positive. Prince Marky D, positive. Biz Markie, positive. Illness. Now, DMX died from an illness. He spoke on death a lot as well. But I feel like outside of a few hard tracks that he had, I think he spoke on the vulnerability of life, the struggle of life, slipping. You know what I'm saying? A conscious way of looking at life. DMX will make you want to rob somebody and then make you go to church in the same concert. Jay talked about that on that interview, but it's true. So you're talking about a conflicted person in regard to DMX. He spoke on death. When you think about slipping, think about the song for his grandma, I Miss You, whatever. He was conscious. Now, of course, he did have tracks, man, where he talking about robbing people, crime story, stuff like that. Of course. But I don't think that his use of death was used in the same vein as Tupac, Biggie, and Big L. I feel like DMX came from even a more spiritual place. Because people like to compare DMX and Tupac a lot because of their energy and passion. That part is true. But I'll go so far as to say I actually feel like DMX was more spiritual than any of those guys, including Tupac, way more spiritual. That's why the prayers after every concert, that's why the prayers on the albums. I feel like he was a man conflicted. And I don't think that he was like rushing to die or feel like, oh, I'm about to get killed. I just felt like he was a person in pain. Just like when I did an article about DMX, the forgotten child. And it was because of his hard struggle growing up, abandoned by parents, staying with grandmother, being in group homes and things of that nature. Then being put on, being kind of persuaded by someone older than him to be put on, to take drugs. So we saw DMX spiraling for 2 decades almost. And to be honest, we kind of felt like, oh my God, man, prayers for X because we just don't know. And again, this spiritual rapper who did speak on death some, he did live much longer than Big L, Biggie, and Tupac, but obviously rest in peace, DMX is gone now as well. So these are people who, like I said, these are some of the ones who did speak it. Now, there are other MCs who talked on death, and it wasn't necessarily all in a gangster way or glorious way, or this is a shootout, or this is a robbery, or this is, some type of situation where I'm about to murder these dudes. Because, of course, that's in a lot of rap, from gangster rap in the late 80s, PSK, Schoolie D, on to Ice Cube, Ice-T, the NWA, Ice Cube, who's still gangster conscious. We know death and murder has been in, Ghetto Boys, whoever. Every hardcore act in the 90s. We talked about mafia influence and dope boy rap through the 90s, and then trap music in the early 2000s. People always talked about people getting killed because the hood, like Mos Def said on hip hop, on Black on Both Sides, people want to know what's going on with hip hop. What's going on with us? We are hip hop. So what's going on in the community is going to be spilled into the lyrics. We understand that. But do the lyrics also cause a different type of energy around you? Well, yeah, I would say so. But anyway, back to what I was about to say is Scarface, for example, talked about death from a different perspective. I did an article on Scarface, enterthedome.com, a few years ago that I post every now and then. It's funny because Face started following me when I posted it. Somehow he saw it. I don't think I tagged him. I don't tag people in my articles or any of my tweets. You guys know I would say I don't tag people. If they see it organically, that's cool. But Scarface saw it, and he retweeted it, and he started following me. This is probably about 3 years ago. Never had any interaction with him or anything, but I assumed that he read it. But I called him the Grim Reaper of hip-hop. Because unlike some of the MCs I've mentioned so far, like I said, he didn't talk about it in the same fashion. He talked about it as if you do know it's going to come. It's going to come for everyone. Let me give you, just a little rundown on how life goes. And he said before that Scarface has battled with, I think, depression and some other mental illness in his past. I think he talked about that before in interviews years ago. So I think that did manifest some in his music. I mean, Mind Playing Tricks on You by the Ghetto Boys was some paranoia type of thing. You know what I'm saying? None of it happened in the song in terms of these people was imagining they were doing these things. You know what I'm saying? But on to his solo career, he really got into talking about the reality that we're not promised anything. From Never Seen a Man Cry Till I Seen a Man Die. That was my favorite Scarface song in the 90s, even over the Ghetto Boys tracks. The reality of that song, man, and the video, for me, that was the first time I heard a song like that and felt like that. Like, oh man, like never seen it. Like, men don't really cry a whole lot. Most times you see a man cry is usually at a funeral. Or if you see someone you love, real sick in the hospital, pass away in the hospital, or something like that. Men really don't cry a lot. Remember that book, I think it was by Michael Basin back in the day, Men Cry in the Dark? What we do? Most time we can't show up vulnerability. You know what I'm saying? But Scarface was talking about the guy was was dying. And he started crying like, I'm not ready to go. And nobody is. I wouldn't think. I wouldn't be ready. If it was me right now, I'd probably cry too. Like, man, because you want more time. But Scarface wants you to know that we don't borrow time. And speaking of the word time, on his album Last of a Dying Breed, he had the song In My Time, which was the song that made me sit down and write the article about Scarface, the Grim Reaper of hip hop, because it was really about his own funeral. He talked about his mom, his grandma parents, and whoever there at his funeral on the front row, all the way down to being put into the ground. It was the most grim and reality type song I've ever heard in the history of the culture. If you haven't heard In My Time by Scarface, please check that out. Just watch it on YouTube. Listen to it deeply, man. Yeah. Even on The Fix, he talked about, someday, you know what I'm saying? But that was more in heaven. So he was talking about, it's more like I said, he's coming in the vein of DMX, because DMX looked up to Scarface also. His spirituality wasn't saying a prayer necessarily, but it was almost like a scripture of what's going on, what has happened in life before, and what's going to happen in life at the end of the day. That's what Scarface did. You know what I'm saying? So, and Scarface, thankfully, is still amongst us. Had to give these people their flowers now. You know what I'm saying? So we have to always make sure we're doing that. So yeah, we do speak death in the songs. Gangsta rap, again, we talked about earlier and on other episodes. The violence we see, we regurgitate in the music. But there are also artists who are not from violent communities and areas who still rap like that. And so they bring that energy around them and their people. And then they surround themselves with people who are from that environment. They speak this language also. It's like that language of death. And then what happens? You have probably some good kids out here and good young men who put themselves in dangerous situations because now they're trying to live out those deadly lyrics. You spoke it. Now someone wants to find out if you mean it. If you mean it. Songs about murders. Song about robbing people. Song about selling drugs. All of those things lead to death. A lot of people that sell drugs get killed. A lot of people rob people, get killed. And it seemed like a lot of people that have rapped about death in such an intimate fashion, in such an aggressive fashion, ended up dying in some kind of way as a result of murder. Not a natural death like your Heavy D's and your Prince Market D's, like I said earlier, or even Eazy-E, who I always call the king of the dope boys. You know what I'm saying? A lot of these guys, if you look, Young Dolph, murdered. King Von spoke murder a lot in his rhymes. You see what I'm saying? You speak a lot of murder, and that stuff can happen to you. You bring that energy to you. This guy, King Von, allegedly murdered people before. I don't know. I said allegedly. They say that this guy, in some of his rhymes, he admitted he was in situations where people end up getting killed. He lived that life. He spoke it in his lyrics. He spoke death in his lyrics, and the Grim Reaper came to see him. Because when you speak that, you keep a certain energy around you. So now you're in the streets beefing with people. You're fighting people. Everybody don't fight no more. So now you get killed because those deadly angels are around. They're around. So you spoke it into existence. Now, if you did a list of how many rappers have been murdered. Now, first of all, it seems like every month some rapper, little so-and-so, has gotten killed. But even on the popular end, there are so many. I won't even list them. At your leisure, go on Google and put in rappers who've been murdered. The list is long. You can't put in jazz musicians that's been murdered, R&B singers, rock stars, country singers, gospel singers. You're not gonna see this long list of people being murdered. But in hip hop, unfortunately, it's a long list. And a lot of people on that list spoke death a lot in their music. Even the ones who didn't have to, because they didn't grow up around it. Some of them did. All of them did not. But they spoke it. Someone had to live it. They had to prove who they were. And that's what happened. So they have a long list of people who are no longer with us. And most of these guys were young men in their 20s. It's the truth, man. It's painful to see what has happened to so many. Because you want to see people get old. Look at the verses. You got You have KRS-One and Big Daddy Kane. A 56-year-old and like a 54-year-old. Up there on stage, man. Still living. KRS-One could have went another route after Scott Rock got killed. Because Criminal Minded was a gangster album for the most part. What I dang, listen to my 9mm go bang. That was KRS and Scott Rock got killed. So then when they do By Any Means Necessary, he's talking about social issues and things of that nature on to self-destruction because he wanted to do self-destruction, so positivity. Because, you know, he could have went left field somewhere after Scott Rock died. Criminal Minded could have been the first of several gangster albums. Now he got a certain energy and vibe. KRS could have been killed. But he changed his words. It was no more 9mm go bang. It was illegal business. Controls America. You know what I mean? It was conscious. Self-destruction. Conscious. Saving lives. Stopping the violence. Stop the violence. So his energy changed. Words changed. It wasn't about the gun anymore. You catch what I'm saying? I do believe you have to change your words. And we'll get back to this point. Now, also in hip hop, death can also be used in certain songs as a way to celebrate someone's life. Bone Thugs did the Crossroads. Man, I'm going to tell you, the first time I heard the Crossroads, I almost shed a tear, man. Because I've lost uncles before. I lost my mom. I lost my grandparents. You know, I lost a lot of people like a lot of other people did. So the Crossroads is when it showed how death is used in hip hop. And I don't want to say a positive way, but a way that's not glorifying it on the violence tip, you know what I'm saying, on some street shit. Bone Thugs talked about just losing family. And how I felt to lose family and, you know, and loved ones. I miss my Uncle Charles. You know what I'm saying? And he said that. So there are ways, to use death and celebrate someone's life. Nas did Dance on God's Son. Dance was about one more dance with his mother, who had passed away from cancer. I understand. My mom passed away of cancer as well when she was only 27 years old. I was a baby. So understand, you guys. I understand. And the other people that raised me, I lost them too, except for my dad. So that song resonated with me also. Now I was talking about his mother, missing his mother, dancing with her one more time. He'd do anything to dance with her one more time, man. You know? I spoke about Biggie earlier and his songs that was really death driven. But after he was gone, people did make songs about him to uplift and try to appreciate the time they had with him. When the Locks made Will Always Love Big Papa. Very deep song. When Jadakiss did that jump for Big for the Notorious album. When Puffy and Bad Boy did I'll Be Missing You. With the Police sample. Sting sung it on the War Show with Puff. Those are songs, to uplift someone. Missing You on Life After Death, Biggie did talk about missing friends and people that passed away. So that would have been a song on Life After Death that had the positive energy. Missing You and what's the other joint he had on there? Catching a Blank on the other song Biggie had on there. But I think you get the point. He did have that one, but most of them were not like that. Sky's the Limit, was still a positive joint. It wasn't about death, but I'm just saying that was a positive joint. Biggie didn't have enough of those, in my opinion. Wiz Khalifa had the joint See You Again. Kid Cudi had The Prayer. T.I. had a few joints on Paper Trail, which Paper Trail is my favorite T.I. album. You know what I'm saying? So T.I. had Live in the Sky or something like that? So there were songs where MCs did use, death and the reality of our lives, unfortunately having an expiration date, to express those feelings. And I'm not mad at those, but as I get older, I look at the energy from a lot of people. The Message by Dr. Dre at the end of the Crime 2001 was also a song about his brother and also about losing loved ones and stuff like that. So there are songs, like I said. You have to balance that out, man, because I do believe that energy is real, as I spoke on earlier. And even in hip hop, for every, gangster track where, I'm going to blast somebody, Cool G Rap executioner style, for every track like that, you do need a Crossroads by Bone Thugs. You know what I'm saying? They give you the other side. And that's why I appreciated Ice-T so much in the heyday of his career. Because he talked gangster stuff. He talked about death and murder and drugs, but he talked about what happens in that life. He always would tell you and then give you the reality. Okay, you selling drugs, it's going to probably get you killed. You robbing somebody's going to probably get you killed. You in gangs, it's going to probably get you killed. You know what I'm saying? So he gave you that reality rap where he wasn't praising it. He wasn't praising death. He was letting you know, if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to get killed. So he was one of the ones I appreciate the most because it was more honest and it was more reality. Because, again, energy is real. Younger people are influenced by hip-hop, y'all. Okay? I know that people saying, well, it's not up to the artist to have any responsibility. It's up to their family. It's up to their friends. It's up to their community. Well, we know in poverty, the communities are broken. So some artists feel like they do have a responsibility. That's why you have a Chuck D and Public Enemy. That's why you had the Brand Nubians. That's why you had the X-Clan. Okay? That's why you had those type of acts to balance out. You needed those acts. You needed Poor Righteous Teachers. You needed KRS-One once after Criminal Minded. You needed Rakim and Kane and all those guys talking about, you know what I'm saying, knowledge of self. Even when the Wu-Tang came, the knowledge of self. Because people in the hood, people in all communities, they listen to the lyrics. If you think that certain gangster rap and certain tales of hood tales don't affect 15 and 16-year-olds who live in those poverty-stricken areas, you are in denial. We do have a responsibility. To say that we have influence in our community but don't have any responsibility in our actions is ridiculous. You said you're from the hood, right? So then you need to balance your music out. Okay, we understand people do get killed in the hood. Okay, so talk about that. But talk about the people that did that. They're going to get killed too at some point from retaliation, or they're going to spend their whole life in prison. And there's nothing glorious about prison. I have family members who've done 30 years in prison. I have a cousin right now he's been in like almost 19 years, man. His 30s and 40s been locked up. So stop it. We are responsible for our communities, man. Record companies don't care. Throughout the last 20, 30 years of hip hop, they want to make money. They'll push money behind you. Chief Keef, after they did that video with the video on I don't like or something like that on YouTube, 100 million followers or clicks or likes or whatever. What happened? Didn't he get a record deal with Interscope? All these little gang kids on that video in the house. I think they say he was on house arrest then. Some of them boys that's in that house now are dead. Facts. Gang violence. You saw them in the video, right? They speaking that violence, speaking that death. Obviously, Chicago, like many other cities, I mean, they sensationalize Chicago, but Chicago is in the south side of the concentrated area because Chicago is a beautiful city. So let's not think Chicago is dangerous. It's not more dangerous than any other city. Every hood has a concentrated area where it's going to be murders. It's not the murder capital of the United States every year. That's propaganda. But my point is, Chief Keef, for example, is another one who spoke that, and the record was put. He got signed, became a millionaire. He doesn't have any positive music. He's not even aware enough to know that that community is still gonna feed off your words. But then again, he's so deep in it, he's lost people. He's been involved in stuff. My point is, for more older and more conscious artists now, they're supposed to grow up and take that type of death out of their lyrics. Jay-Z, Nas, all these guys, they talking about success now. They talking about the good life now. They're not talking about hustling and stuff like they did, 30 years ago or whatever. They don't supposed to. Your lyrics supposed to grow with your age. Now, Pusha T, Griselda, all these guys, they rap about drugs. You know what come with drugs? Death in prison. You know what I'm saying? But that's another story for another whole day. Nevertheless, the words you speak carries weight. The words you speak creates energy. Energy is real. What you speak, I do feel, coming full circle, that it can't come to fruition. I feel like if you speak death 24/7, you might start seeing death more. You might visit more. I feel like Scarface is the perfect example of how to describe this is what life is about right here. Live it to the best. Understand that we all have an expiration date, but try to appreciate it. Pass down jewels to your family. Take care of your loved ones. You know what I'm saying? Because if you're spitting murder all the time, it might find you. Again, there's a long list of MCs who have died over the years. Most of them come from a certain background. Some of them didn't. A lot of them really did talk about a lot of death. There's nothing to celebrate about this. Yeah, if you want to celebrate someone's life because they passed away, that's fine. People do that in different cultures or different ways. Celebrate the life someone lived, especially if they touched you. Now, I don't blame per se Biggie, Tupac, Big L, none of those guys, because they were young people. I'm 46 years old. I'm a lot smarter than that 46 than I was at 22. I think people, because of certain artists are so big still to the culture, and because social media now, you're able to talk about these artists on a daily basis, we often feel like they're here with us. And not even realizing that most of these guys that I'm talking about, they were really young when they died. I mean, Tupac was 25, Biggie was 24, and Big L was in his 20s also. So these are young men trying to still figure it out. So that's why it's up to us older people in the culture who have any kind of platform, whether it's Twitter, social media, Instagram, whatever, to speak positivity and reality. Because kids are watching again. Again, it is our responsibility to make sure we're giving them the truth. If you want to give them some gangster shit, fine, but give them the truth also. Let them know what's going to happen. If you're going to keep speaking death and hanging around death, dancing with death, playing with death, making love to death, then it's going to manifest, man. It's going to manifest. I can barely listen to some of it now when they speak in a certain language. I really can't, man, because I know what it does to our youth. I know how a lot of kids are already frustrated with their living conditions. Some of them already affiliated with gangs and crews and just things of that nature, blocks and stuff like that, because they're searching. And then you're pumping death in their ears upon every release. You're pumping that energy into their spirit on a regular basis. And you feel like it's just entertainment. Good people, I don't look at it that way. I look at everything as education. If you either you're educating someone that's leading them to potentially thinking better on how life can be, or you're educating them on all there is death and poverty. And for some people, that's all hip hop is. There are people outside the culture. And I know people say, "Oh, we don't care what people outside the culture think." Well, okay, fine. But there's some people that think hip hop is only about negativity and death and violence, and that's not true. There's a lot of great positive artists out here, but the labels and the people that be and negativity get clicks. If I was on here being radical already in these first 11 episodes, radical, crazy, talking nonsense, talking death, talking whatever, been over animated or something like that, it might have picked up faster. It might be picking up faster because negativity gets people attention for some reason. But we want to keep it positive, man. Once again, happy Good Friday. I just had some thoughts today as I was making some rounds because I didn't work today. I didn't go into the office today. And I was making some rounds out in the community and downtown. And I just had these thoughts, man. I felt like I would go ahead and do another show. Even though we just released episode 10, I thought it would be a good idea to just go ahead and knock this out, man. So in conclusion, man, who are some of your favorite MCs who you feel like, uplift life? Who uplifts life? Who makes you feel good when you hear their music, as opposed to who has constantly and does constantly bring that negative energy and that energy of death around us, around our kids? We need more positivity, in the music, in the messages, in the words. The words have power, you guys. You know what I'm saying? Never forget that. Never forget, even when you type something, somebody gonna read that and it could change their whole mood. Somebody listen to something can change their whole mood. You've heard a song before and it made you feel good and smile. You've heard a song before that made you cry. You might have heard a song before that made you want to bust somebody upside their head because someone's so aggressive and talked so much violence and death. And then let's say you had some liquor in your system, some marijuana, or whatever. Now you're hearing this song about something. You see somebody you got a problem with, you might attack them. That's my whole point. I know that some people sound like, "Oh, that's hyperbole, T. Haynes." That's you're reaching. Now I'm really not reaching because music does have power and the energy can manifest in you. It can. So just remember. Thank you again, good people. Episode 11 complete. One love from NC.